Today's podcast is sponsored by Farmhouse Teas.
No civilization has ever been in this state of environmental ignorance. In previous eras, people who lived in an area, whether they were newcomers or old-timers, had to be intimately aware of their surroundings and viscerally involved in rearing and preparing food for the table. But in recent decades, in our culture, putting food on the table does not require any knowledge or involvement except how to scan a credit card, open a plastic bag, and nuke it in the microwave. No civilization in history has ever been able to be this disconnected from its ecological umbilical. And in more frequent dinnertime discussions, I'm finding more and more people wondering if a civilization this disconnected can actually survive. Joel Salatin, folks, this ain't normal. Welcome back to the Ample Flame Podcast. This is episode 3. I'm Ben. This is Meg. Hope you guys are ready. This is going to be a fun episode tonight.
Oh, we're going to dive right in. Okay.
Let me open my notepad right here.
Do it. We gotta
I've
get
got
official.
notes.
I got my clipboard.
I got a clipboard with notes.
We hashed this out this afternoon because we were like, we're going to do it. We're going to talk about this. And we might tick some people off.
We might. Sure. We'll definitely tick some people off in the after show.
Yeah.
This isn't a shameless plug for the after show. I will say, because it's behind a paywall, we do speak a lot more freely.
Yes.
So yeah, just put that out there.
Yeah. People are probably biting their nails like, oh gosh, what are you guys going to talk about?
All right. Today's episode is health and why we eat this way.
Yes. So I think we should start out by explaining how we eat now. And then we'll talk about
that's pretty good.
How we got here.
Okay. So I guess we've done YouTube for 8 years.
This will be 8 years. Yeah.
8 years. And during that time, we have been on quite a food journey.
Yes.
We were already headed that way. We were already
Before YouTube.
We were already eating pretty clean then.
We were trying.
Trying.
It's been a long journey.
It has been a long journey. The longer we've been on this journey, the more intense it has become.
Mm-hmm.
So really what we eat now, we really only eat organic produce.
If possible,
if
yes.
possible.
Right.
We really only eat organic grains and things like that. But, the more we learn about it, that's even kind of debatable.
Right.
We raise 100% of our own meat, or at least we did,
yes.
until we had a hiccup and we didn't procure any of our own beef this year.
But we do make sure that we're buying local from people we trust as far as the meat goes.
Yep. We basically have opted out of the entire meat system.
Yes.
Kind of my thinking for it, it's twofold. The reason I took on learning how to kill and process animals was I learned about the broken food system. I learned how absolutely horrible this food system is.
Mm-hmm.
And it really made me rethink eating meat, and not in a vegan way, I'm not. It was
right.
It was really, wow, these are nameless, faceless animals that died so I can eat meat.
Yeah.
If you eat meat, something had to die so you can eat meat.
Yes. And they were typically mistreated.
Yeah. Yeah. If you
Horrifically
if you look into how factory farms and factory slaughterhouses are, it's horrific. Like, it will change the way you think about meat.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, I basically decided, well, if something's going to die for me to eat meat, I would like to be responsible for that.
Yes.
And I don't mean like to. I am willing to take on that responsibility to feed myself and my family good, healthy, clean meat. If, it's a way to make sure the animal doesn't suffer.
Right.
It's a way to make sure that animal is as healthy and as happy as it can possibly be. Now I will say, it does suck sometimes pulling the trigger.
It does, yeah.
Our first steer we raised, he was maybe 50 pounds when we brought him home.
Mm-hmm.
I picked him up and carried him out of the trailer. Like, he was a little guy. And we handled this steer. We calf shared for 2 years.
With the mama, yeah.
With the mama,
yeah.
our dairy cow. And so when it came time, the plan for him, he was a steer. The plan for him from day one was he was going to go in the freezer. But when you've handled an animal like that, you've worked with that animal very close. When you look it in the eye, when it comes time for, processing day, and you're the one doing it, you figure out real quick what you're made of. And it does suck. And I think it should suck.
Yeah.
You should feel something every time you take a life to put food on your table.
Yes.
So with that,
Yeah.
where do we start talking first?
I mean, that's where we're at. And we try to raise a good portion of our produce as well. And we can talk about why we didn't decide to stop eating meat once we kind of get into the story a little bit, because there's some parts in there that kind of go along with that. So we should jump into why, and I guess when, and what was the catalyst for doing that research that you talked about and looking into the system and changing the way we eat now from what we were doing.
We both grew up with a standard American diet.
Yeah. And props to our moms. They did the best they could with what they knew. And, you know,
I think what's funny is, like, you know, getting older and comparing stories. It's like, man, pizza rolls and Hot Pockets.
Yeah, all of us. We talked to everybody and we're like, oh, it was so good.
I think what's funny is millennials in general, talking to people our age, and, you know, we're pushing 40.
Yeah.
And other peers that we have, and we all ate the same stuff growing up.
You know what comes up the most?
What?
Pizza rolls.
Pizza rolls.
Everybody loves
millennials
pizza rolls.
ate the heck out of some
Apparently
pizza rolls.
we did. It was a big deal.
Tostino's pizza rolls.
Everybody brings it up.
Everybody. Like, when you talk about fond childhood junk food, that's the drug of choice right there.
Yeah. Now, I will say, both of our moms did a lot of cooking from scratch.
Yes.
We did. I mean, your mom cooked from scratch.
Oh, my mom made some fantastic meals.
So it's not like we didn't have, you know, from scratch home cooked meals. But I would say, like, the in-betweens, the fillers, there was a lot
snacks,
of, and fast food and all that kind of stuff, like everybody else was doing.
Honestly, a lot of other people still eat this way.
Yeah.
We just don't anymore because we kind of went down the rabbit hole and learned too much.
Yes.
Can't go back. Can't take the blue pill and go back to sleep.
Right.
It's too late.
Yes. So here we are. So this kind of started mostly when our twins were born. And we talked about our twins in a previous episode and having them and life, our early parenting life was a roller coaster. So we've talked about that. But just to kind of recap really quickly, we had twin boys for our first pregnancy, and I got sick with preeclampsia, had an emergency C-section, and they were in the NICU for 3 months. So that kind of like flipped a switch in me, because I was like, oh gosh, now I'm bringing these tiny, tiny, tiny humans home. And we've just been in this environment where they're like in a bubble, you know,
completely sterilized
environment. And now I'm bringing them into this home that has all these things in it, and I'm not entirely sure what to do. And I realized, like, something went wrong because I got sick. My body was not supporting a pregnancy. And so it was kind of a combination of a bunch of different things that caused me to kind of go down the rabbit hole a little bit before you did.
Oh, way before me.
Yeah.
I think you were down probably like 6 or 7 years before I ever...
It was a
like,
while.
hey, what are you doing down there?
Right. I'm digging deeply. So once they came home, it was like, well, you know what? They are preemies, and they weren't fragile, but, you know.
They were fragile.
It seemed fragile at the time. They were very fragile. So it was like, I got to feed these people something good, you know? And I started looking into, like, diet and nutrition is really what I was looking at, was nutrition. And through that, I found a book called The Whole Soy Story by Dr. Kayla. I don't remember her last name, but it's Dr. Kayla. And that was a huge eye-opener, because I was like, oh gosh, soy is no friend to our male children. Learned a lot about phytoestrogens and nutrition blocking that happens with eating soy, and how the phytoestrogens in soy, if it's not properly fermented, can do a lot of damage to male organs.
So basically, with all of that, I mean, there's a lot of people who aren't aware of soy is bad.
Yes, that's true.
Soy has been eaten by, like, the Chinese for centuries.
Yes.
They take the soy, they ferment it for a very long time.
Right.
And once it's fermented, what it does is soy naturally has phytoestrogens and estrogen mimickers in
its natural state.
In its natural state.
Unfermented,
just raw,
right.
unfermented state. So when you ferment it, it breaks all of that down and makes it so it's not horrible for you. Well, in case you didn't No, there's soy in literally everything.
Yes.
There is soy in every food product you can eat, buy, acquire.
Right.
It's everywhere. And this is not fermented soy. They take the soybeans straight out of the field, crush them up, and make horrific things with them. That's a whole rabbit hole to go down.
Yeah. But it's worth looking into.
It's worth looking
doing
into.
Your own research.
And if you've seen today's youth and wondered what went wrong, I think you can directly link it to soy.
Yeah, a lot of that has to do with it. So I read this book and I'm doing this research and I'm like, well, I have 2 little male children, you know? And at that time we were buying like Crisco as our, our shortening was all the rage, and Country Crock margarine.
Oh, yeah.
And I literally finished the chapter that I was reading and I walked into our kitchen and I chucked the almost full tub of Crisco and the Country Crock. I threw it in the trash can. And that actually hurt me because I do not like throwing away food at all. And it was like, we paid money for this.
Plus, too, back then, we were broke.
We were broke.
We were so broke.
So it was like, I paid money for this, but it's got to go. And so we started buying butter. And it eventually, in that same realm, I found Nourishing Traditions, which is a book by Sally Fallon Morell. And that's put out by the Weston A. Price Foundation. And once I found them, the rabbit hole just split off into bunches of little caverns all over.
If you read any book, go read Nourishing Traditions.
Yes, it will change your mind about so many things.
And they have the science to back it up.
Yes.
I think that's what's nice. There's a lot of people who are like, well, let me see the science, and here you go. Here's all the studies. Here's the stuff.
And it's like peer-reviewed studies and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, so that was really, really eye-opening to, I think at that time it was both of us, because I was starting to be like, hey, what about this? What do you think about this? And you were starting to like, well, I don't know, I got to do my own research, And
as one does.
Yes. So that was, I talked earlier about why we didn't go like vegan when we started learning about the CAFOs, the meat system, is because we had read Nourishing Traditions, and meat is a big deal for
animal fats, animal protein.
Fats, right.
Very, very important for good health.
Yes. So again, we're like, well, we have these tiny, preemie humans, male children that need like all the help they can get. And so we were like, okay, well, meat's a big deal. Yeah. We need to keep meat in our diet. And I think we started finding documentaries. We found like Food Inc. And Food Matters and like all the things. And that's when we were like, oh no, we can't just buy meat and keep eating meat. It's not just meat that is important. It's the kind of meat you're eating. So,
which was hard because at the time, like I wasn't making very much money.
Right.
And food is expensive. Meat is expensive. We spent a lot of years buying from the markdown section for our meat. Like that's exclusively where we shopped because that was the only way we could afford protein.
Right.
But as we worked on things, as time progressed, we talked about it in an earlier episode about paying off debt and getting in a better position. What that did was that kind of lightened up the budget to where we could actually start affording better meat.
Right.
And so with that, yes, we're this is a food journey we were on.
This is over years. Yeah, we've added more children by this point.
We got up to where we had all 4 boys, and we were finally to the point where we could start shopping at the farmers markets. And California farmers markets can be pretty cool.
Yeah,
they're pretty cool. Like we went to farmers markets all across the country when we traveled the U.S. in 2018, and some places they were cool, but I mean California has some pretty cool farmers markets.
Yeah, mostly because like there's just produce and stuff available.
Yeah, I mean it's
a lot of the year.
The Central Valley is the breadbasket of the world, and with that, there's a lot of food. So you could find fresh stuff. You could find the purest organic whatever.
Yeah.
You can talk to the farmer who's at the farmer's market and say, hey, what do you spray on this? And they're like, absolutely nothing.
Right.
So,
see these bugs?
yeah. If you thumb through this cabbage here, you'll probably find some caterpillars.
Right.
Like, these are unsprayed. With that, we started making connections on where to buy meat. And so we had a farmer that we could buy pork from. We had a farmer where we could buy beef.
Yeah.
And chicken and so on and so forth until once we had all these connections, it was really weird. The last time I had bought a pack of ribs from the grocery store, And we had been eating clean for a while.
Right.
And it was like, well, we're at the grocery store picking up some other stuff. This pack of ribs, it's generic ribs. I don't think there's that big of a difference. And as soon as I opened up the pack, you can smell the difference. The commercial prepared Smithfield or whatever brand they were, they smell like manure. Like, it smells like a pig pen.
Yes.
And it was so off-putting. Me and you had a hard time eating these ribs, and we slathered them in barbecue sauce.
We did, yeah.
And so stuff like that, the more you clean up your diet and you start eating clean, healthy raised animals, properly raised animals, you can taste the difference.
Yeah.
You can feel the difference too.
In the meat, the texture, and when it's cooking and mouthfeel and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, you really can. That was another thing too, was I think the last time we got chicken breasts from the store, the texture was mushy.
Like shockingly soft.
I almost didn't even have to chew.
Yeah.
And it was like, what is wrong with this chicken?
We're used to pasture-raised poultry.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, for whatever reason, run out of chicken. There's chicken here at the store. Oh, look, that's a great price per pound.
Right.
I'll just take this home. We need chicken. And then you eat it, and it's like, what did they do to this? This isn't how chicken's supposed to be. Yeah,
it was kind of a weird, like, we had these little shocks over time that was kind of weird. And I mean, I will say it was a journey, because we did, and we have in our life gone back and forth for various reasons because of, budget or, it's not available from the farmer and we got to eat something, that kind of thing. So we've just put things in place now to where we're like, we have a system so that there's not as much having to go back to the grocery store. And we have not bought meat from a grocery store since we've been here.
Yeah. So we've been in North Carolina we got here in 2019.
Yeah.
So spring of 2019. The first thing we did was we got meat birds.
Yes.
The next thing we did was we got pigs.
Right.
And since then, it's kind of been a struggle figuring out how much we need. And we're at a kind of a precipice of, when we got here, the boys were little, and now they are not.
Right.
They eat more than I do. These are, very active young men that need a lot of protein.
Yeah.
And realizing the protein requirements our family has, not this past year, but the year prior, we put 2,200 pounds of meat in the freezer.
Yes.
That's,
pork, chicken,
and beef.
Yeah.
It was our beef. It was all of our pigs and all of our chickens that we raised. And it sounds like a lot. Like, it really does.
It does.
And it was about 8 months of meat.
Right.
And we're not eating carnivore. We eat a pretty well-rounded diet. We, if you look at our plate, meat is one of 3 items on the plate.
Yeah, usually. We fill in with carbs,
carbs and vegetables if we can.
Stuff. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, we're not going crazy on it, and it doesn't last us very long. And I think what's interesting is, like, people would be like, oh my gosh, that's so much meat. How could you ever eat that much meat? But if you were to take into account what you are buying from the store on a weekly basis and you actually added all of it up, it would probably be about the same.
Yeah.
Maybe even more, actually.
Yeah.
So it just sounds like a ton because it's all in one big chunk.
Yeah, it's all up front. But
for what a family of, we're 8 now. The little one doesn't eat very much, but
she sure does like meat, though.
She does like meat. If you add that all together, then you would probably be shocked yourself at what amount of meat you're putting in your freezers.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that you just go in with someone, buy a whole cow, come home with a half a cow, a quarter cow, something like that. That was how we used to do it. We'd buy like a quarter cow or something.
Yeah,
like
that. The grass-fed beef place that we found had this really awesome deal where it was $60 for a box, and they would get like a moving box from Home Depot, and line it with the bubble wrap stuff. And it was just whatever you could get, like what they had for $60.
Which,
so it would be a couple
back
packs
then, like grass-fed beef.
We were like, heck yes.
Like, oh my gosh, what a score.
It was a score. And that's how we ate beef, was I would take whatever would be in that box. So it would be a couple packs of ground beef. You might get a pack of steaks. You'd most likely get some roasts, maybe even some soup bones, that kind of thing. It was like, I'll take it because I know it's clean and I can feed my family with this and I can stretch some meat. I'm good at that. Yep. I've been doing that for a long time.
Yep.
So I was like, heck yes, $60. And that was a way too, you know. We also did some trading with friends who were farmers.
Yep.
We would help them run their booth at the farmer's market, or I would go help her, plant stuff, and she would send me home with meat. And it was like, that works. That's great.
The more we learned about what's in and done to our food, the more we wanted control.
Yeah. And I think that's a big thing that led us to homesteading.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because while we were doing the best we could with buying from local farms and stuff like that, for one, this cat, sorry, she just jumped up here and scared me. For one, like when you're, I'm going to say at the mercy of a farmer's market and other farmers, and I mean that in the nicest way possible, there's only so much available.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
You can't always get the cuts you want. You can't always get it at all if it's not the season for it, or they haven't gone to the butcher recently, or any of that kind of stuff. So that was a struggle a little bit with the farmer's market, and local farms was like, well, we can't get beef right now. They don't have cows going to the butcher until January, you know?
Yeah.
And then same with produce. It was like, well, we can't always get the organic produce we want from the grocery store. We can't always get what we want from farmers markets. And even with the farmers markets, even though they were great, there's still sometimes that it's like, it's not quite raised exactly how we would want to raise it, you know? So we kind of just started, like, I guess, taking control more of what we could do.
Well, I think the first thing was we got chickens.
Yes. Egg layers.
Egg layers.
In our backyard.
Illegally.
Yeah. They were not illegal. I just had more than I was supposed to have.
So 4 of them were illegal.
Yes.
It was over the maximum
That's
number.
right.
The next thing was growing a garden. We were just in this tiny backyard, so I just made a edible landscape as well as...
Awesome.
It was. Like, it was cool.
So awesome.
You know, when you're working on such a small scale, an edible landscape's an awesome way to...
Yeah.
You know, I guess the more I've learned about permaculture, it's like, oh, I was kind of playing around with permaculture.
You were,
a
yeah.
bit.
We just didn't know it. We were just making it pretty and edible.
Yeah. Ripped out everything that was not edible and replaced it with stuff that was.
Yeah.
It was kind of cool. But for me, it was all just, yeah, whatever, until there was a hunting trip I went on. And, you know, this hunting trip cost a couple $100 just to get up in the woods. And I came back empty-handed. And as I'm coming down the mountain, just frustrated. It's like, man, the only deer I saw were the ones that I almost ran over.
Yeah.
Because they're crossing the road, and then, you know, you can't shoot from the road. So it's just, well, I got to find a spot and camp out. And, you know, I was only up there for the weekend, and now I'm out this money, the gas money, the food, and all this. I'm coming off this mountain frustrated, and it just like clicked. It was like, I don't have control of if I'm going to get a deer or not, but I do have control over these chickens and the garden. Like, these chickens are for sure food. You know, they're either going to lay, or if we needed to, we could even, you know, process them and put them on the table.
Right.
And the garden, as much work as I want to put into it, I can get food out of it. And so it was just this, duh. And when I got home, it was like, okay, we're going to do this more.
Yeah.
And we did. We really started moving into homesteading. I think that was when I got serious about it.
Yeah. So it was something I had already been doing because of my research and just a desire to, I don't know, I was having babies and I wanted to grow things and nurture things, and I wanted chickens and all that. So I was already heading in that direction. I was reading all the books and doing what I could in our little backyard. And yeah, when you jumped in, it was like, that's when it got serious. Because we were like, oh, let's do this.
So really from there, I guess we can jump ahead a little bit. From there, it just kind of spiraled out of control, and we moved across the country.
Yeah.
And now we're homesteading.
6 acres.
Yeah. We're doing the homesteading thing. We had originally wanted like 10 acres. And when we couldn't find what we were looking for, we sat down and it was like, okay, we could grow all the food we want. If we do the same thing we did in California, we could grow everything we need on an acre.
Right.
Maybe not raise a cow, but
far as vegetables and some chickens.
Chickens and stuff like that, all we need is an acre. And then lo and behold, boom,
6 acres.
here's
pop up,
6 acres that is right within our price range. It was awesome. Like, we're super happy with this property. And we can get a cow.
Yes.
We can only do like 1, maybe 2 at a time. And
Right.
It's pretty intense rotating them around on all the grass, but we can do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of work. But if you want it, you have to want it.
That's right.
Yeah, we really jumped off into the let's control what our food eats
Mm-hmm.
so we can control what we eat.
Right. And not to sound like crazy militant about it, because you can, and we have actually jumped into the realm where, I mean, honestly, food can become a religion almost. And so we've gone down that path where we have kind of freaked out about everything. And we got to a point where we're like, this is not mentally healthy.
No.
We might be physically healthy because, we're eating all the good things, but mentally healthy, we're like losing our minds about what has been possibly sprayed or drift or, all these things.
What's that called?
The orthorexia.
Orthorexia.
Yes.
We basically went so far that we were starting to become orthorexic, where, that's a $5 word right there.
Yeah, very fancy.
You can look it up if you want. I'll try to define it. Basically, it's when you are almost like religious fervor obsessed about everything that enters your mouth.
Yes.
It is your religion,
right.
really. And we saw it starting to get that way. It was like, hey, we're putting our diet on a pedestal.
Yes.
This feels unhealthy. We're not going to die if we accidentally eat some soy.
Right.
Because we were out and we didn't pack food and something happened and we got to stop somewhere and get some food.
Yeah.
Like, is this the hill we want to die on? And we really had to stop and talk about it. It's like, hey, are we going to be militant about this?
Mm-hmm.
And kind of where we came to with it was yes and no. Militant, yes. Are we going to be hoity-toity about it? No.
No.
So kind of where we got with it was just kind of, we made peace with it. I think that's the best way to
I
say
think
it.
that's a good way to put it. We didn't want it to affect our relationships with friends,
Mm-hmm.
because not everybody eats the way we do.
Mm-hmm.
And we should not have that as a requirement to be our friend,
Yeah.
Or like, we're not going to spend time with you around meal times because you don't eat the way we do. That's obnoxious.
Yeah.
And rude and like really bad manners. Very bad social skills as well. So we were like, okay, relationships need to be more important than food. And we have to be realistic about budget sometimes. But it is also an important factor to us so that a large part of our family's diet is clean and, well prepared and, good food. And the rest of it, it's like that kind of 80-20 rule, that the rest of it, it's okay if it's not perfect. We're going to be all right.
I'm going to quote Brian Sauvé.
Yeah, do it.
If you go to someone's house and they don't, eat super clean and they serve you Kraft mac and cheese for dinner, you take it and you say thank you and you say grace over it.
Right.
And you eat it.
That's right.
Like, we're not going to be that way.
Right.
So that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah. So, because we did realize we were getting to that point where we were like, oh, I don't know if we want to eat over there, because I was like, hold up, this is not okay.
This is not cool.
Not okay. But I did want to share another quote, actually, kind of on the flip side, and why we do take this seriously as far as what we do feed our family when we are in control of it is, I was watching a conference seminar, and the Farmstead Meatsmith was one of the speakers. And he says, it is your duty to feed your family. So, and what he meant by that was you have to take an active participation in feeding your family. So the flip side of what we do would be like, you're always just eating fast food and you're always just getting whatever's at the store. And you're not taking the responsibility to do research about ingredients and nutrition and what's going on in the food world, and you're just buying whatever and eating whatever. It is our duty to take care of our children. They're not.
We are responsible for them.
We are responsible.
Health included.
Exactly. So that is something that like they are part of our stewardship journey and our stewardship responsibility, and we take that seriously. So in as much as we are able, we eat as clean as we can.
Yep.
I am a big tea drinker, and I've been buying from Farmhouse Teas for years now, and for good reason. Cian and her family handcraft the most amazing loose leaf teas that are as beautiful as they are delicious. Whether you're winding down after chores or just want something special in your cup, there's a blend for every season. Head over to farmhouseteas.com and use the code HOLLER10 for 10% off. If tea is not your thing, no worries. They also have organic bulk herbs, elderberry syrup mixes, medicinal plant seeds, and more.
As well as, it's stewardship of our children. It is also stewardship of our animals.
Yes.
Part of the reason we got into this is, I forget which documentary it is. Food Inc.
Probably.
There's one of them, and it kind of goes into gruesome detail about the slaughterhouses. And, oh gosh, the killing floors where they run these pigs through and electrify the entire floor and kill them all. Like, it is brutal.
Yeah.
The first time I was ever involved in a pig slaughter, the only thing I'd ever seen was videos of slaughterhouses. And when you process your own pig that you raised, there is a level of respect for that animal when it goes down that those animals in the slaughterhouses never experience.
Right.
It is completely inhuman how animals are processed. Doing it yourself, doing it with your friends, you can make an event, you can have a get together, and the amount of respect that's paid to that animal, I feel, is awesome.
Yeah.
I'm not saying the death is awesome, but at the same time, if that animal can die in a respectful way and you utilize as much of that animal as possible, you are showing respect to that animal. Right. And so that's kind of where I'm at with that.
It's been great to teach this to our kids as well, because we've had really deep discussions with our kids, and we've actually watched some of these documentaries, and so they're aware of the commercial food system, and then they see our food system, and they will even say themselves, like, oh gosh, this is so much better than what's out in the world and what other people are eating. It's just such a better way to just have your diet in general, because even if we weren't ourselves doing the processing and we weren't even raising our animals, but we were getting our meat from local farms and we knew our farmers, even that system is a way better system than the CAFO system, the conventional system, because we can walk onto that farm and they know their animals and they have, names and relationships, quote unquote, relationships with their animals. And so we know that those animals have been respected throughout their whole life and have been treated the way that we are called to treat. We're called to steward and to take care of, and to not rape and pillage and desecrate things. It's just a way better system. And I actually really appreciate this life because our children have been able to learn what real stewardship looks like.
Yes. So learning a little bit of science about food and how nourishing your body properly can and will change your health. So this was kind of a big one for me.
Right, because again, it took you a couple of years to get on the train with me.
Yeah, I kind of had some other stuff going on. I was working all the time. I was losing the entire reason that I was working. I was losing my family because I was gone all the time. I was working too much. And with that, I developed some pretty severe alcoholism just as a coping mechanism, and it quickly spiraled out of control after that. And I found myself very, very sick. Quite sick. This was on about 2015, 2016. It had really gotten out of control. And I woke up one day and I was yellow. Like, I was jaundiced. My eyes were yellow. My skin was yellow. I looked like I was going to die. Honestly, I probably was.
Yeah, I think you were.
And it got to the point where I could not physically drink anymore. If it touched my lips, no matter what it was, if it had alcohol in it, I would upchuck it immediately. And it got really bad. And really the only people who noticed were you.
Yes. It was, yeah, it
you
was
and
me.
The kids. It was just Meg. Meg put up with me while I was going through all this. It's self-induced, but I don't know, it was just like a sink or swim moment.
Mm-hmm.
I had watched Meg do the Whole30, and I saw what it did for her. And it was just one of those, you know what, this is something we can do together, do this diet together.
Right.
It's only for 30 days. Like, I can quit drinking for 30 days, right? I'm not that much of a alcoholic, that word. So we did it.
Yeah.
And it was in August, which is in the Central Valley.
Yes.
The farmers markets are amazing. You can get all manner of fruit and vegetable.
They were fantastic.
And it was amazing. Well, what happened was in about a month, I lost weight.
Mm-hmm.
I started sleeping good. My brain fog that I didn't realize I had went away. I started feeling like I hadn't felt in 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like I felt like a kid again. Mind you, I had just turned 30.
Yeah.
So this is almost a decade ago. I'm 39. I was 30. So
30.
This was 30, 9 years ago.
Almost 32 because it was in 2017.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. In your 30s.
In my 30s, early 30s.
Yeah, and your yellow went away.
The yellow went away.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I think what was weird was like everybody at work started coming up to me, dude, what the heck are you doing? You look amazing. And it was like, I feel amazing. I don't feel like I'm dying anymore.
Yes.
I have a hard time talking about this publicly because it's my dirty laundry.
Yeah.
It's dirty laundry. But if me telling my story can help somebody admit maybe they need to address their issues,
Mm-hmm.
it's time. And you can do it. Like, you absolutely can.
Yeah.
If I can, you can.
Right.
And honestly, it was easy because we were eating so clean.
Yes.
Something you don't understand until you've cleaned up your diet is when you start giving your body what it needs, everything starts functioning better. And I mean everything. All manner of body functions function properly. Your brain works. Your aches and pains go away. Your knees, and it's like, oh, I'm just old. My knees are hurting.
Right.
That goes away.
Yes.
If you're getting your animal fats and your, go read Nourishing Traditions and you'll learn about eating your vegetables with your animal fats,
right,
so you can absorb all of the minerals.
Mm-hmm.
I realize that everything is depleted.
Yes.
Our soils around the world, really, but mostly in North America, the soils here are so depleted. They knew this 100 years ago.
Right.
Our United States government knew that the soils were dangerously depleted in the 20s and still did nothing.
Yeah.
So what that means is if the soils are depleted, then you're growing vegetables in completely devoid of nutrient soil.
Right.
What's that make those vegetables? Devoid of nutrients.
Devoid of nutrients.
So even though, generally stuff is going to be devoid of nutrients, and I'm not talking about putting fertilizer. I'm talking about your trace minerals,
mm-hmm.
all the micronutrients that are in food are supposed to be. That stuff's gone. And, that's where stuff like supplements comes in. That's where stuff like, and I'm not hating on supplements. I take a lot of supplements, but I have never felt the way I do from taking supplements as I have eating a clean, healthy, rounded diet.
Right. Even knowing that a lot of the trace minerals are probably not there.
Mm-hmm.
It's still better than what we were eating.
Yeah. So, currently me and all four of the boys come down here to the barn. This is our multi-use space. This is a podcast studio / workout gym /
feed storage /
in the winter butchering workshop. Like, we use our barn. Well, we come down here and we are actually in month 3 of doing a workout called P90X. It was real big back in the late 90s, early 2000s, I think, or definitely early 2000s. And me and you did it back in 2013.
Yeah.
Corbin was 6 months old, and we did this workout.
That was crazy.
It kicked our butts.
Oh my gosh, it was so bad.
It annihilated us. Like,
and we were in our mid-20s.
We were like, what were you, 25?
I was 25.
So I was 26. And
I felt so old.
It kicked our butts. But we were still eating a lot of trash.
We were, yeah. We really hadn't cleaned up our diet a lot then. Pizza, takeout pizza every week and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. We pulled our heads out eventually.
Eventually.
But I will say, I'm 39 now. We're doing this exercise, and this is an intense workout.
Mm-hmm.
we're not hardly sore.
None of yours.
Like, and I'm lifting more weight than I've ever lifted in my
Mm-hmm.
life. And I have worked out since I was 12 years old.
Yeah.
I bought a pair of 20-pound weights when I was 12, and it was like, I'm going to get ripped. And I never got ripped.
Neither got ripped.
And doing this workout in the first month, I started seeing a difference in my body. And it's like, what the heck?
Yeah.
It's got to be the diet.
Well, and you're not sore.
And I'm not sore. That's another weird thing. It's like, I remember doing some of these workouts and just being so sore, I couldn't hardly walk. I have not been sore to the point where I'm like walking around hobbling this entire workout.
Yeah.
You know, we live a more active lifestyle now with homesteading, but the diet has a lot to do with it. And the thing I noticed with the boys, like the older two, you know, they're 18. They're pretty much done growing. They might get a little taller, but they haven't grown in about a year.
Yeah.
These dudes are getting ripped.
They are. It's ridiculous.
Like, they'll be getting ready for bed and they'll have their shirts off. And it's like, what the heck? Man, I worked out for years.
You did. It's hilarious,
and
actually.
could never look like that. They look like sculpted marble statues of Greek gods.
It's
like
hilarious.
It's shocking.
Yeah, even Corbin, who's 13.
Yeah, even Corbin looks freaking amazing.
It's hilarious to me.
It is kind of hilarious.
Yeah. So now we've kind of gone through a little bit of our history and what led us into eating the way we do, but also, you know, not being militant about it.
We try not to be.
Yeah, we try not to be. We try to give you guys practical applications for various things on whatever topic we are talking about. And so, do you have practical application steps for eating better, or maybe researching, or, you know?
I think we've already kind of talked about some of our sources. The Weston A. Price Foundation, which is a very censored organization.
They are, yes.
They do not go with the mainstream narrative
they
at
do
all.
not.
So
No.
Don't believe the first Google search you read about the Weston A. Price Foundation. The information they have will change your life.
Yeah. And I think I will say you should read both sides.
You should.
To make sure that you're making a decision that you agree with, you know? Read both sides.
Yep. We did.
Yeah, we did.
You read both sides. You read, oh, yeah, this is fine. Eat this.
Yeah.
And then you actually, you know, I hate to even say this. You almost have to be a part-time chemist to understand what these ingredients are in food.
Yeah.
I know that the farther into researching this stuff we've delved, I start learning like, okay, like what do these chemical names mean?
Mm-hmm.
Is this just the scientific name for salt?
Right.
You know, sodium, salt, like that. Everybody knows that one. But you really have to start learning some of these names and what they mean, and then you can read a name of an ingredient and go, oh, okay, that's just a salt that's derived from sulfur, you know, stuff like that. You do need to educate yourself. Kind of where we're at with it is never stop educating yourself. Never
absolutely.
stop growing. Like, don't stagnate.
Even now, like, we've learned what we've learned, but we still keep learning and we still look at research. And we have, you know, there are some things that we're looking at now that it's like, oh, I'm not sure if we agree with that anymore based on research that's come out, you know? Still don't agree with CAFOs, but, you know, like certain ingredients kind of thing. One of the things that people will ask me a lot frequently, actually, how do you eat the way you do? I've also got a large family. We don't have the budget, blah, blah, blah. And I always tell them conventional produce and raw ingredients is still better than eating from a box. So even if you cannot afford organic, you can't afford
to buy half a cow.
But to buy half a cow.
Grass-fed cow.
Right. It's still better than if you were eating all of your meals from a box. And I say that as somebody who ate all of her meals from a box when we were first married. Rice-A-Roni. What was the pasta one? Yeah, Hamburger Helper. There was another pasta one. I think it was Pasta-Roni or something like that. We had the frozen TV dinners and frozen breakfasts, and literally everything was from a box and a package. And I think we'd buy some apples, you know?
Maybe.
Like that was our produce was like maybe apples and bananas. And then we started just buying produce. And that made a huge difference. And so...
And actually eating the produce. You have to be very intentional. If you want to change your diet, you have to be very intentional.
And a lot of it was actually not so much a nutritional factor for us at the time. It was a budget factor. It was, it's actually cheaper for us if I buy like, the 99-cent pounds of ground beef and then like the pasta itself and some milk rather than a box of hamburger helper. I can actually make more of a meal, or more servings, I guess, for less money if I buy the raw ingredients.
Yep.
So that was a big thing. So if all you can do is conventional produce and raw ingredients,
it's still better.
Still better. Rice and beans and, plain pasta, that's still better.
So part of our food journey is because, one, budget, and two, like, you learned how to cook really, really well.
Yes.
And you learned to cook on a budget.
Right.
And, all this stuff. We learned how we like to eat. We learned what we like to eat.
Yeah.
And scratch cooking just fit that.
Yeah.
And, as we're trying to get away from the processed stuff, the boxed stuff, with that, it's like, well, how much harder is it to boil water, boil some pasta, and make a sauce for it? Throw some ground beef or chicken in it. It's going to be better than anything from a box anyways.
Totally.
Like, that's what we found. It was like, man, like, this copycat recipe you found of just use hamburger helper. We'll just keep beating them up.
Yeah.
This copycat recipe was better because it was all from scratch than any box of this stuff we've ever eaten.
Yeah.
I'm never buying that again. Like,
right.
Let's eat this from now on.
Yeah, it was way better. It was funny because your mom actually bought me a Betty Crocker cookbook when we got married. And when we were like, we have no money and we got to figure this out, I guess I'm going to have to learn how to. Now, I've always loved cooking in general. I grew up watching like Food Network. I was that weird kid that did not watch cartoons. I watched like Food Network. And so I always loved to make food anyways, but I wouldn't say I was any kind of a cook. Like I could make pasta, but that was about it.
We ate a lot of pasta when we first got married.
We did eat a lot of pasta. So your mom bought me this Betty Crocker cookbook. And when it was like, okay, we got to get serious about our budget and food and what we're eating, I would sit down with that cookbook and look through the recipes and be like, okay, I can make that. And well, I've already got ground beef in the freezer. And, like I would just go through and I just started cooking out of the cookbook. And you were like, hey, this is really good.
It's really good.
So that was a big thing, was learning how to cook. And I mean, you can find shows on PBS. YouTube's a big thing now. It was not a big thing when we first started.
YouTube didn't exist when we got married.
It did not exist when we got married.
Makes me feel really old.
So I had to go OG and like go to the library and find cookbooks. Or, we did have cable for a small period of time. And so we would watch Food Network. But I mentioned PBS because it's free. You don't have to pay cable for that.
We found some good cooking shows on PBS.
Did, yeah.
It was free.
Yeah.
So it was great.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think another really important thing is actually just to find ways to eat vegetables that you actually like. So a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to eat broccoli because it's broccoli. Don't steam it. Slather it in butter. Like,
fry it in a pan.
Yeah.
And slather it in butter.
And
add some garlic. Like all of a sudden, broccoli's
like
delicious.
actually salt your food and it'll taste good.
That's been something too. Is a lot of people don't salt their food.
Right.
Properly salt your food.
Yes.
And don't do it after it's done cooking. Salt that sucker when it hits the pan.
Yes.
Like, the best advice I heard was, it was one of those PBS cooking shows. It was like Jacques Pepin, one of those guys. Yeah. And maybe it was Alton Brown, but it was, don't put your salt in a shaker. Mm-hmm. Always put your salt in like a bowl so you pinch it and add it to your food. And what happens is you'll develop a relationship between your fingers and your taste buds to where this much salt is going to be this salty on the tongue. Yes. And so we adopted that. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, like still to this day, if I'm frying hash browns Sunday morning, that's our meal. I fry hash browns and eggs and whatever else. That pinch of salt, it's like, okay, that's how salty these potatoes are going to be. That's going to be perfect. Yeah. And then when we start eating, they're perfect. Yeah. And it's one of those things. You start learning how to cook. You start learning how to salt things. Salt at the beginning. If you need more salt at the end, that's fine too. But your food is so much tastier when it's cooked with the salt. Right. Or salt your meat ahead of time. Oh, always. If you can salt your meat hours or a day before you cook it, do that. Yeah. I guess all of this, man, just plan ahead on your cooking, on your meals.
Right.
And all of a sudden you'll be eating better.
Yeah. And if you're planning ahead, then that gives you more time and resources to like seek out farmers markets and maybe grow your own food. We've gotten to the point now, and I'm saying this is years into our journey now, but now we are going, okay, we know we want to eat salsa verde pork this winter. So we're like, all right, we got to grow the tomatillos now. We got to make sure we're, setting roasts aside when we do our pigs.
Yep.
But if you have a baseline of like how to cook and what you want to eat and you're planning ahead, then that makes it way easier to eat really good, healthy food in the long run.
Yep. All right. So I think we're actually going to end this episode here. Not before I talk about the after show. We are actually going to, right immediately after this, we are going to film the after show. Where, because it's behind a paywall, we will speak a little bit more freely about the poison in our food, about the things that, I don't know, it's not so publicly acceptable.
Right.
Yeah. So we will be speaking freely here in a few minutes when we push record again. I would like to thank everybody for listening to this, watching this. If you're watching it on YouTube, we do have video format of this if you're so inclined. We have really enjoyed, it's kind of like a date night.
It is.
Like the boys, each of them takes turns whenever we do one of these podcasts, and they watch the baby for an hour.
Yep.
And it's great. Like we sit down here and we get to have adult conversation.
Yeah, we just talk about stuff we like to talk about.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't mind spending time with our kids, but sometimes it is nice to just be us.
Yes. Just alone for a little bit.
Just alone and not have to repeat something 6 times.
Right. Yes.
Well, the baby's not asking, huh? What'd you say?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Give
So
her
it's
time.
5 times. We have to repeat things 5 times. If you are actually interested in the after show, it's available on Patreon. We will leave a link in the description or the show notes of this video if you're just listening to the audio format. For a small fee, you can get our extra episodes.
Yeah.
Ad-free. You can get our episodes ad-free. You can. I'll let you guys click the link and explore and see if you want extra episodes. All right, we are gonna wrap this one up right here, and I hope you guys will join us for the next one.
Bye.